Hey there, welcome to Gauntlet's Race Mod. Today we are looking over the 5th completed race. This is the Turan Raiders. These are humans who split off from the rest of mankind a little while ago, and they've developed separately for, maybe like 60 years in the sort of storyline that's going on in my head. Alright, so if you look at the top right, you can see their portrait. I know it's not a great shot because it's just the diplomacy screen, but yeah, don't want to give it all away. But yeah, you got a nice space pirate there with an eye patch even, and one of the regular backgrounds and logos there. Okay. Alright, and the ships. Now you might have seen these ships labeled in the TR showcase. There's definitely those ships still here, but we've added a lot more. And this set has been interesting in that it is both one of my more creative and less creative ship sets. It's more creative in that it was pretty difficult to do some of these, and it kind of stretched my abilities because it's less creative. And when I say that, I mean because you're going to see ships that you've already seen, but now captured and retrofitted by the pirates to be somewhat different looking. So it was, in some ways it's a cop-out, right? Because it's using models I've already made, but then finding unique and interesting ways to modify them, tweak them, make them look hodgepodge or patched together, retrofitted. That was difficult. And some of these models I was very successful with, and some of these models, no, not so much. A little too plain. So we'll get into it in just a second here. Let's start with Tiny. First up, I'm actually not going to do the Scout first. This was the first model I did for this ship set. I've gotten a few comments about trying to be a little more descriptive about how I come up with a ship set or how I build my ship models. You can watch my tutorials for a bit about the how. So really, I think people are asking me, like, how does one come up with the aesthetics for a set? All I can really say is that it comes to you. I would say this, make one ship. Usually I start with a medium, not a small or a tiny or whatever, but make one ship. That whatever you do with that, use that for the tone. If you're happy with it, use that as the tone for everything else, and try to stick to some of the same parts. Yeah, that's my first bit. And then the other thing is think less about solid objects linking together. In some ways, the ship designer is like Lego building, and you have all these parts that snap together really nicely. However, unlike Legos, they can, intersect each other. So for example, in this ship, you see some tubes there on the top, as well as some like grill plating stuff. Those are all sunk into the hull. Those are rather large parts, actually. They're just sunken inside of the overall shape, so you don't see most of it. I'm only using the surface of one of those parts. So think less like Legos and more like surfaces, however that would translate. At any rate, I think this came out pretty well. I wanted it to be different than my Terrans, but still similar, so we're using one of the newer front hull pieces, a much bulkier sort of look. It's got this interesting sort of big cannon on the side. Could be a beam cannon, could be kinetic, you can't really tell. Lots of tubing and stuff. And then it's got like these 3 crates on the other side here, presumably ammo or supplies or something. Yep, I like it. Pretty simple little guy. Now the Scout version really just replaces the ammo crates with an extra engine, which is one of the reasons why I have it flying kind of unevenly. The other reason being that this middle part I use, this sort of octagon, for whatever reason, it hit that bug where like angles don't angle right, so I can't get it to rotate properly very often without a lot of fidgeting, so this also limited me. It's got a narrower cockpit, it's presumably got less people, and we took that gun emplacement and just converted it into a little radar dish. So it was fun. I like the asymmetry. Not everybody does, but I do. So there you go. You got your Scout, you got your kinetic fighter. Moving on, we have a beam fighter. This is the first retrofitted ship. It is a Kirani beam fighter. But as you can see, one of the navigational prongs there on the right was lost on the left and has been replaced with something else, some other jury-rigged replacement. You can also see that while the main cannon on the left is still intact, on the right we've got a new sort of angular turret thing. You might not have seen that in the previous videos, but that's a turret for the Zerhan. They'll be coming up probably in the next video or two. So, at any rate, there you go. Okay, and then for missile, we have a Vagar fighter. You've probably seen this in the VGR set as well. This is probably one of my favorite fighters that I've ever done. There was a fighter design contest a while ago, and I really should have submitted this, but I had made it a few months before the contest really started, so I didn't know if that would be kosher or not, so I didn't enter it. But I think this is really slick. It's got lots of detail, lots and lots of detail. It's got this cool engine piece with the little flaps that are moving, and then I'm really just very happy with the overall angle and asymmetry. In the crux there, you've got those two glowing bits that are kind of moving in and out, almost vibrating. The idea there is that that might be some sort of lightning cannon. So yeah, very happy with this model. But it belongs to another ship set, so why is it here? Well, it's unlike the other ships which were salvaged and retrofitted, this one is actually just a mercenary. The Vagar are a aggressive nomadic people, akin to the Mongolians way back when. So they're totally up for hire. So the pirates have a lot of ships they've stolen from other races or salvaged from battles, but Vagar ships, when depicted in this set, are going to be pristine because they weren't salvaged. They're hot off the presses. These are actively in use, and they're just mercenaries for the pirates at times. Okay, that's it for the tinies. Moving on to the smalls. We will start with sort of a beam and/or all-purpose ship. This is homegrown. The pirates build and design this themselves. It's got their first own turret. You're going to see a lot of these in the near future here. And yeah, lots of sensors, a radar dish. I really like the engine profile. Those three round engines extended, and the lower one moving up and down a bit, and then that top fin, and it makes it very fish-like to me. And I think if I bother to name these, I think a lot of them are going to borrow from predatory fish names. So this might be like a tiger shark or something like that. Okay, next up, we'll go over the Explorer. Here is your pirate Explorer. This is the Terran gunship Explorer, heavily modified, different cockpit piece entirely, coming out much further, and two sharp wings attached to the back, and a big cannon attached there as well on the left. Alright, and then we've got, of course, you've undoubtedly noticed, the skull piece. The skull piece came out with the update just as I was finishing this set, so I had to rapidly go back and add it to a bunch of stuff. And I didn't leave the skull alone. You're going to see a version like this where it's got that sort of big tube over one eye with the little tentacle making an eye patch, which I think is awesome. And then another version puts a glowing piece underneath it so that the eye and the nose hole glow yellow, which is really cool. I'm also debating for this mod, when I release it, whether or not I will also give people my custom components. On the one hand, custom components will be, I mean, it'll be great, right? You can use my turrets and my skull motif, etc., and make your own ships to add on to these sets. And that's cool, but on the other hand, I mean, kind of takes something away from me as the maker, right? Like, if I don't give it to you, I'm almost kind of protecting an intellectual property thing. But don't worry, I've already decided, really. I'm giving you all the parts. I wouldn't do that for you guys. It's just, it was interesting that the thought occurred. So, anyway, I like this ship. I think it came out pretty good. It's very piratey. Next one is the kinetic small hull. It is a Terran bomber that they've lost the wings to. So they put on these very basic wings and attached some kinetic cannons. They've also just plated on, nailed on one of their own turrets to the top there. So there you go. Oh, and that turret on the top doesn't move because they've literally nailed it on. That was intentional. They can't aim that turret. It has to go straight forward. So you can imagine that thing making big, long strafing runs. All right. Then we've got a Fulgar missile corvette that's been retrofitted. It's lost a few parts there in the front, as you can see. And it's lost the main engine, which has been replaced with a pirate engine. And then that engine apparently was making the thing all offset and just didn't work quite right, so they had to add on another engine to the other side to counterbalance it to make the thing fly correctly. I like it. It's got a lot of character. I love the Fulgar ships, and they were particularly a good ship set to them maul because it's got a very different style than the rest of the pirates. So it's pretty clear that these parts do not belong on this ship. Okay. Then we have another Kirani ship. This is your balanced all-purpose small hull. It's a Kirani gunship that's been heavily modified. And one of the back turrets has been replaced with a bigger pirate turret. It's got an extra power pack and comm gear on the top right. It's lost one of its gun arrays on the front left. And of course the two side engines have been replaced with these much bigger pieces that are both kind of an engine piece as well as a laser array or beam array that you're going to see on all the other pirate units. So there you go. Okay, that's it for the smalls. We'll go over to the cargos. Cargos is one of the other things I did first in this set. If anybody out there knows the board game Quantum, I actually based this off of one of their little art pieces for the red faction in that game. I think it's the frigate or something, but it looks, well, just like this because I looked at that and copied it. The image I'm talking about is less than an inch by an inch, so that was kind of a fun little project to take such a simple image and kind of extrapolate. But yeah, I'm really happy with how this cargo ship came out. It's where I defined the bigger command sections. I hadn't really used these Kryn command sections yet in any of the other ship sets, so I was glad to start. Started using the Thallin sphere piece here. Got that rotating cool. And we've got the side bays, or cargo pods, I guess, for colonists there. So very happy. You got the same ship, but with construction modules, of course. So there's your constructor, or maybe a freighter. Freighters are one of the ships I just will not be making unique models for, at least at the moment. They don't even appear on the screen traveling their little trade routes like in Gal Civ 2, so I just don't care to make a whole extra ship just for that. Not yet, anyways. Okay, here's your drone carrier. The drone carrier took that cargo hull, cut it in half, lowered it a little bit, threw on this different engine complex that you're going to see a lot of elsewhere. And then the top half here got decorated with lots of little gribbly components and this circular piece you can find in the Terran set to host all the fighters, which you're going to see a lot of in the bigger ships too. So this was a lot of fun. It's got a Kirani fighter, 2 homegrown pirate fighters, as well as a Terran kinetic fighter flying about there. So a nice mix match of fighters there. Yep, quite happy with that. And then really happy with its sister ship, the Transport. I went a little nuts with this. So it's the same overall ship model, but we have extra power cores going on in the middle there. And then we've got docks for our drones that you've seen on the Terran Transport. Since these are other Terrans, it makes sense that they share a lot of technical similarities. And then, of course, we've got the skull motif there in the middle top. And you've got those cords, those big cables coming out. And I don't know what it would be, but it just looks cool having them kind of merge into where the skull is. And then, of course, flying about are all the non-docked drones that are all carrying big rocks. And yeah, they're going to drop those rocks on cities and force people to capitulate and pay us money because we are pirates. I mean, honestly, I wish there were special rules so that I could just, use a transport to extort people or something with these guys. That would be awesome. All right, there you go. Those are the cargo hulls. All right, moving on to the mediums. We'll start with our survey ship. So you'll start with this at the beginning of the game. You've got your traditional comm gear, of course. You got a radar dish and a survey module there up front. It's got this weird asymmetrical design where front half is split. And of course you got your glowing eye skull with a laser cannon there on one side. And then you've got the command deck with supply caches, I suppose, over here with these big crates. Lots of tubes. And you got 3 turrets. Nothing big, but the survey ship that you start with is armed, so it makes sense. And then you've got that same engine module I've been using. So yeah, quite happy with how that came out. Then you've got your balanced all-purpose medium, and for this I decided to do a wing of a bunch of fighters. You got 2 pirate fighters, a Vagar fighter, a Fulgar fighter, and a Terran bomber all mixed in there. So pretty happy with that. It looks really nice on screen. And I love doing that. I love using fighters as bigger models because it helps get them into the game. Those small holes you design and tiny holes you design, which are really cool, but then don't really use because tiny holes suck in actual gameplay. They're useless as scouts, hence the censorships. They don't carry enough. So, and I know there's a lot of problems with sensors, but if only they did hull sizes differently, where maybe tiny and small could eventually get discounts on mass or something like that, so that they could really keep up as you evolve technologically. That would be nice, but currently I just don't think they do. I'm not a math player, so I know there are other gamers out there who can probably show like, no, if you go with an all tiny strategy or something like that, they'll beat out the larges and the huge and whatever. But I think for your average player, they're lackluster early to mid game. For the most part, I skip actually building any until I just would never make a warship out of a small or a tiny until I have to. I usually skip and go straight to mediums. Alright, so enough about that. Here's a medium lasers. Don't talk about the game, Gauntlet. We don't want you to actually play. Just make more ships. Alright, here's your medium pirate ship. It's got a big cannon in the front and then 2 big side lasers. And you've got this sort of interesting plated hull on the left. You got your command deck on the right. You got tubing, you got engines, and 4 turrets. So this actually has a double engine layout. So presumably this is coming at you hard and fast, whacking you with those beams, and then on its way through your fleet and coming out, it's hitting you with the turrets. Okay. Kinetic destroyer. This is a pure pirate vessel right here, and yeah, I think it might be my favorite pirate ship. It's got just this great turret layout with the up and down. They can hit you. All those turrets can hit you from all 3 angles here. So yeah, I think I'll probably call that like the dagger tooth or something like that. Really like it. And then you got the engine piece, a few more turrets, command deck, etc. Really has that old sort of galleon feel to it, I think. Alright, here's your missile destroyer. It's the survey hull again, but now with Terran torpedo pods strapped to it, as well as a Kirani missile system in the front there that they've bought. Otherwise, though, it's the same model. Okay, and then an alternative to that is a Fulgar torpedo destroyer, where they've had to retrofit a bit, such as this pirate wing here on the left, a human torpedo pod to replace the Fulgar one, and the right-hand side they lost whatever torpedoes they could put on there. They lost that, and they put in an extra command deck of sorts. So there you go. Okay, so that's the mediums. Moving on to the large. Here is your all-purpose or kinetic large. You've got that. We've returned to the big glowy thing in the front. 2 big laser pods in the front, and then you've got these side racks, these tube sides, carrying just tons of turrets. Of course, your big engine platform. If you've seen the other video, you've seen this sort of design already. Okay, then we've got our laser variant. Just adds more beams, loses 2 of the circular racks, and just replaces it with beam emplacements. So there you go. Then you've got your carrier variant. This has 4 different fighters on it. A couple pirate ones, a Fulgar one, a Vagar one, and a human fighter, all just strapped in. I don't know why, but I didn't make a flying fighter with this one. Just didn't. Okay. Now for the 2 really special ships in the larges. Let's do the human one first. This is a Terran missile battleship, if you will, that's been retrofitted. You can see it's missing one of its torpedo pods in the front there. They've added the skull piece. Also, some of the turrets have been replaced with pirate turrets. One of the sensor systems has been lost and replaced with this sort of wing array. You've got an entirely different command deck. So this has been heavily modified. A different engine system's been tacked on. You even have this interesting little emplacement in the back here, just kind of raised and put up with a Karani turret on there. Okay. All right, and the support battleship. So this is what the AI uses for all of its support modules and stuff like that. So not necessarily a main combat ship. This is probably the most heavily modified one. This is the Karani support battleship, but as you can see, it's very different now. I guess we'll start with the fact that the front sensor arrays have been lost and replaced with big stabby spikes. Oh my. The front command deck has also been lost and been replaced with a pirate command deck. With this interesting sort of array, as well as some tubes. The sensors and the poles have been changed up. Then you've got your nice pirate motif in the middle there. And of course this extra tubular sort of piece going on in the middle of the hull. One side lost its missile battery, the other side lost the missile battery and got it replaced with a kinetic battery with some ammo crates. One of the turrets has been swapped out. You've got extra comm gear, some sort of sensor pods on one side that's been tacked on, some random plating, some more tubes. And finally, the engines have been replaced and some of the navigational arrays had to be swapped out too. So you can just imagine that this ship was really just totally busted, floating in space, derelict. And these guys have restored it as best they could, but with lots and lots of modifications. And I think it's just a very cool profile now, especially with that skull staring at you. Alright, and last set, we go to the Huge. To start with the Huge, we have 3 Vagar ships. These are missile destroyers put together as a pack. Again, the Vagar are going to be like mercenaries for these pirates, so that's why their ships aren't damaged in any way and look just fine. Kind of like a wolf pack going on here. So that's the missile. For the kinetic, we did the same thing, but used the pirate destroyer here. So you got 3 kinetic destroyers. Alright, and then the other 3 Huge all use the same base model. Here is your all-purpose sort of dreadnought. And this is really cool because what a broadside. You've got 5 of these giant turrets on both sides, held in between the 2 big hull pieces. And then you've got 4 of your lesser turret arrays, if you will, coming out on each side. Kind of reminds me of the helicarriers from the Avengers, if you will. It's got the 2 lasers in front as normal, but also big turrets in front. And really, like, the front is a command deck. It's got a mid-range command deck in the rear as well. So this thing is just got plenty of staff, I guess. And then you got the engines, of course. It also has 2 fighters just kind of in waiting. Yeah, I like it. I'm very happy with this design. Then, of course, you got the beam variant. Really simple, just takes away the 2 front circular pieces, battlements, if you will, and replaces it with more of our beam things. Really like the effect. I think it came out quite nice. And then finally, we have the carrier. The carrier replaces those 2 front turrets with 2 more fighters. It adds the skull motif. And then on the sides here, we lost all those turrets and made them fighter emplacements. It was really lucky that the fighter just fit in there perfectly. Like, there's no cropping that I can tell. Everything fits. So, maybe there's a little. Maybe there's a little here and there, but you know what? I think it's fine. So yeah, very happy with how this came out. I know it's the same model, but overall, it's just cool that it worked out. If I was building this from scratch, I would have built it the same way. So I'm really happy about it. Okay, those are all the main ships. There's one special ship in here. The AI will not be using it. It's a huge hull, and that is a pirate battle station. It is an asteroid base. You've got some industry going on here. Maybe this is where people are working and housed. Maybe it's just a giant generator. Who knows? As you can see, there's more of these gun emplacements. Lots of guns on this puppy. And then you have this big docking array here. You actually have a whole destroyer docked. And then a landing pad with 2 fighters on it. And we repeat this as well. You have another one docked and another landing pad, but this time with a Vagar fighter waiting to launch off. And then, of course, you just have more and more gun racks and the command deck there in the middle. Really pleased with how this came out. The profile's nice. It's a kind of uneven trifecta going on here. Yeah, really happy with how it came out. So there you go. That is the pirate faction. The next factions coming up will be the Vagar. You've seen their main fighter and their missile destroyer here as well. They already have a showcase that shows off a few of their models, but we're going to finish fleshing them out, as well as this other race called the Zerhan. And yeah, hopefully we'll get those both finished very soon. I might try to do them both in one video, so we'll see. Wish me luck. All right, thanks, guys.